second, third generation, and so on to obtain Canadian citizenship.
So now it's up to genealogists here in Manitoba to dig up these documents for folks who are looking to prove ancestry here. So what has that meant for genealogists here in Manitoba?
I asked Kendra Gady, who is a genealogist here in Winnipeg and also the chair of research at the Manitoba Genealogical Society, if she could tell how the number of requests she received from Americans has changed because of this law.
Prior to this, maybe one every month or 2 months. And then just since January, there's been a whole bunch of them. Yeah, like it's exponential increase in requests from Americans. I've had to subcontract another genealogist to help me with the workload.
Wow. So this new law clearly spurring interest in Canadian ancestry. So what else is driving people, though, to kind of consider at least maybe potentially becoming Canadian citizens?
I talked to 5 people, 3 men and 2 women, and they were all motivated in part by the current political climate in the U.S. Even though they're not planning to leave immediately, they feel safer knowing that they may have the option of leaving the U.S. for Canada. But I want to emphasize that none of the people who spoke to me seem to be taking these steps only for administrative purposes. They all expressed a genuine desire to reconnect with the country of their ancestors and pride to be able to call themselves Canadian. Many got very emotional when they were telling me their family stories, and I would like to share 1 or 2 with you because I had such a good time listening to them that I cannot keep them for myself. I'll go first with Philip Murphy's story. He's from Boston. He's a big fan of former Boston Bruin Bobby Orr, who's Canadian. And he got to create a relationship with Canada through, of course, ice hockey.
Consequently, we would be involved in doing these home and home, mini tournaments with Canadian teams. So we would come up for a long weekend to mostly Quebec, but some in Ontario as well, and bill it with the families of the players. And then they would come to Boston and do the same reverse.
I also wanted to share one of Megan Lawrence's stories. She lives in California, but her grandmother was a figure skater from Ottawa.
She left to go to the Cleveland Skating Club, where she was a professional ice skater. And at the time, my grandfather, he was taking skating lessons from my grandmother. And part of the family story is that he asked my grandmother to marry him on the ice. She accepted his proposal, and she said, "Now get off the ice. You're the worst skater I've ever seen, and you're never allowed to skate again." And from what I understand, he never skated again.
That is a very Canadian story.
Yes.
So if there is any, American listeners or people with maybe American family members and think, hey, maybe they might be eligible to become Canadian citizens, with this new law in place, is there any advice you'd give them at all?
Well, as a journalist, I don't think I am qualified to give any advice on that topic, but Cédric Marin sure is.
Immigration officers are very strict, and so they are looking to make the easiest decision on your immigration file. In other words, as they're flipping through your pages, if a form is missing, if a box is not signed, if something is left empty, there's a very high likelihood they're going to return your application as incomplete. So my advice would be just be very careful to review the instructions, the guide, and make sure that you're going to succeed what's called the completeness check.
Well, this is super interesting. We'll have to check back maybe a year or so to see, if these, looks into the archives actually end up becoming successful applications. It'll be super
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Alexia.
Thanks for having me.
That is Alexia Boyer, a reporter with Radio Canada.
Time right now is 6:22 a.m. and that was Corey Funk in conversation with Alexia. Super interesting story to start our Monday show. Well, up next, is this stuck in your head? It's stuck in my head. You can hear it in the background, just like it's running in my brain. For 14 days, the Olympic theme. I gotta turn that off. What are we going to do without the Olympic Games, people? The action's all over. There was joy. There was heartbreak. There was a bit of controversy. Donovan Bennett's here. He's been covering the games for CBC and Milano Cortina, and he's here with some highlights. Hello.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'm guessing you've got to be extra caffeinated after everything you've been doing. How would you characterize these games for Canada? You heard my thoughts.
Yeah, I think joy is a great word to use. I think there is a mix of a pride around our athletes and how they competed, even if maybe we weren't as productive as some of the analysts thought we would be coming into the game and fell short of the medal total. But there is a more than a medal mentality, I think, that certainly we need to have with our athletes, and I think that we have as a country. And I really think it meant a lot to us in a time of nation building, given what's going on in the world, with how we showed up and how we competed. And at times, the resiliency and grit that our athletes showed, and we hope to replicate that in our lives, but also the unapologetic nature with which they competed. And so it was real cool. It's binary, right? There's gold, silver, bronze, and that is the general definition of success. But I think it can be a success when you give a country a reason to rally and to have fellowship and to cheer.
What were your standout moments in the 2 weeks?
Oh, you're asking me to choose between my children. There's so many. I would say from positive, let's start on the good side. Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier. They've been to the Olympics before. They didn't really have the performances that they wanted to. They second-guessed themselves, and it is amazing to see someone have the skate of their lives on the world stage and finally, break through and get that Olympic medal. And they've been through so much. In pairs figure skating, you see teams change quite often, and they've been together for the better part of a decade and battled through injury and, through life. Piper Gillis specifically, battled cancer, lost her mother, and to see them get their moment and the country, have a chance to rain them with praise for what they've done for the sport in our country was really cool. And then on the flip side, it was a while ago now, but the Hershkevich controversy, the Ukrainian athlete who wanted to have a tribute to fallen Ukrainian
Oh yeah, the helmet,
athletes.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
both kids and fellow Olympians in the IOC saying no because it was in their minds a political statement.
To
And,
have the names of the fallen on his helmet. Yeah.
yes, in the photos, and where do you draw the line between skaters who held photos of their family members that had passed to him, showing these photos on his helmet, and the fact that he was willing to risk his games, his competition. This is someone who was ranked 4th coming in, so he was a medal favorite. And the IOC, drawing a hard line was interesting because as much as we want to say that you can keep politics out of sports, everything becomes political at a certain time. So the fact that he stuck to his convictions was fascinating to watch.
Obviously, people are talking about hockey. I did see some of the analysis last night from the panel. Who knows? I mean, way more than me being an armchair fan here, or I guess armchair coach, they say. But one of the things that was said was that this is not a moment in our country to really worry about the programs. This is not like collapses or losses. These were close games, fantastic hockey. We just didn't come out with gold.
Agreed, but that doesn't mean anyone's going to listen, right? We are Canadians. This is hockey. We will have a referendum and a summit about it because we expect to win all the time, and this is not an outlier. When you look at the junior level, the World Juniors, both men's and women's, we did not win gold. When you look at the age of the team that we lost to in the United States on both sides, they brought younger teams to the Olympic Games than we did. So this is a foe that is not going away. But I do think, yeah, we will talk about the price of equipment, to the diversity of the sport, to the roster construction of these teams. I do think we're in a great spot. And I think this is what success looks like when you globalize the game and bring others in.
Well, the women got a build. The men, though, 3-3 in overtime. Like even both the women and the men with 3-3. That format, I think, is what's going to have a lot of people talking too.
It certainly is. And, us in media definitely know about sticking to time and a run of show. And there was another main event that many people cared about afterwards called the closing ceremony. So they needed the gold medal match to end on time. But it is cruel and unusual punishment to basically lose in a game of shinny. It looks like pond hockey in 3-on-3.
Oh, we got to talk about curling for a second before you go, because obviously we're the home of Jennifer Jones here in Manitoba. So
Yes.
we're curling obsessed in Manitoba. Canada, obviously, gold in the men's tournament. Such great competition. And in the women's as well. But I have to say, Homan fought for that bronze.
She did, and this was, a legacy games. If we're being honest, the comps between Homan and Jennifer Jones have always been there. Because of how long that they've been dominant. But the difference has been, that Olympic performance. So to fight just to be in contention for medals, never mind winning one, was fascinating. And then, when you talk about fight, when there are articles written in the BBC about these antagonistic Canadians and what does it mean for the country, the Commonwealth Brethren, that maybe they're not as statesmanlike as we thought. When we're watching curling on maybe a longer delay moving forward because of some of the spicy language.
Dropping the F-bomb on the sheets.
That's right. Yeah. So, and multiple teams being accused of cheating and double touching. Yeah, curling was where the controversy was in these games, which is not what I expected going in. I did expect a couple medals, so I'm glad we left with those. But it was a fun watch.
I think all of it was, and I really liked how you stated, what it means beyond sports. We're watching these individuals chase something, and it says so much about all of us somehow. All right, thanks very much for your coverage, and thanks for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks to the province for delivering so many high-level athletes for us to compete in these games. You always punch above your weight, so all Canadians owe you big time.
Thanks, Donovan.
Cheers.
4 athletes from Manitoba competed in the Winter Games. Also a special shout out, we mentioned curling. So Jeff Stoughton, who's also from here, the national curling coach. That was Donovan Bennett. He's been part of CBC's coverage for Milano Cortina for the Winter Games for the past 2 weeks. Coming up on the business news and the report today, some experts say that some young workers are taking a different approach to climbing the corporate ladder. They're not interested in leading teams or leading leadership roles. So we'll find out more about that after your news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. Well, a blast of cold as we begin the final week of February in Winnipeg. We're at minus 20 right now. We do have a risk of frostbite because of that strong south wind, but we will warm up to minus 11 this afternoon. One of the most popular tourist destinations for Canadians turned into a war zone over the weekend. Gunfire, flames, and sirens shattered the calm in Puerto Vallarta, a part of Mexico usually considered very safe. Government forces killed a drug cartel leader who was known as El Mencho, and that sparked a violent response from his surviving gang members. A lockdown was imposed in the region, forcing people in several Mexican cities to shelter in place. Global Affairs Canada is warning criminal groups have set up roadblocks. Winnipegger Ed Johnner stays in Puerto Vallarta several months every year. He was walking in downtown Puerto Vallarta with his wife yesterday morning when they noticed smoke all around the Bay Area and thought it was a wildfire.
I saw a couple of cars burning on a side street, and then there was plumes of smoke everywhere, all around the entire bay. There's smoke everywhere.
When they got back to their apartment, yelling and gunshots on the streets below their balcony, Global Affairs Canada says there are just under 19,000 Canadians in Mexico at the moment, including nearly 5,000 in the state of Jalisco. Now, one flight was diverted, and at least 3 flights were canceled from Winnipeg to Puerto Vallarta yesterday. A WestJet flight left Winnipeg around 6 Sunday morning, but was diverted just half an hour from Puerto Vallarta. It landed in Cabo and then flew back to Winnipeg. Lorna Friesen was on that flight. She says she's been to Puerto Vallarta at least 7 times and never noticed cartels or cartel violence before. She doesn't know if she'll try to go again.
I'm going to wait and see if it settles down, and if it settles down, I might still go for a while, but other than that, I might wait till next year.
Heather, your volume is just missing.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries.
I was just giving you an update on the Airports Authority, saying that as of 5:20 last night, those 3 flights to Puerto Vallarta from Winnipeg remain canceled. So we will have the very latest on this story from Mexico coming up on World Report at 7. Winkler Deputy Mayor Andrew Frais says a measles outbreak isn't a topic of conversation for people who live there. That's even though Manitoba's Chief Public Health Officer warns municipalities near Winkler and Morden have persistent high levels of transmission. Frais says the city of Winkler is leaving messaging to provincial health officials. He says the measles vaccine is a choice, but he hopes people in the region follow expert advice.
There may be some with pushback, but that's everywhere in anything. Ask someone to wear their seatbelt and they might not want to.
Provincial stats show Southern Health's measles vaccination rate among 7-year-olds is the lowest in the province at 53%. Marking 4 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Hundreds gathered at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg. People who fled Ukraine say their country and the people they left behind are always on their mind. Bohdan Jordan felt being at yesterday's rally was important.
We want to show that we are united. Yes, we left our country, but our country didn't leave our hearts.
Jordan worries people are normalizing what's happening in Ukraine because Russia's attacks against her country are so frequent. Now, dozens also gathered and sang for Ukrainian freedom in Brandon. Oksana Golyovka arrived in Brandon 3.5 years ago, fleeing the war. She has since built a new life. She got married. She opened a business. Golovka says Ukrainians are exhausted from living under siege, and she fears for her country's future.
It's hard to hear from my friends and relatives. They used to live in this environment, in this situation that happened, but it's not normal.
Golovka especially worries about the lasting trauma this war will leave on future generations. To Italy. A song from the beloved Italian opera Rigoletto by Verdi, performed at the closing ceremony last night of the 2026 Winter Olympics. Norway led the medal count this year with 41 medals, including 18 gold. Canada in 9th place with 21 medals total, including 5 gold. Kirsty Coventry is the president of the International Olympic Committee.
I now declare the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games closed.
The Winter Paralympics begin March 6th, and Los Angeles will host the next Games, the Summer Olympics, in 2028. You can find the latest news updated throughout your day, your morning. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Heather Wells from our news department this morning. Well, today, Corey Funk is doing a lot. He's still show directing, but we've got him covering weather and traffic as well. It's time for the regional forecast, Corey.
Yeah, let's start up north. There is a yellow level cold warning in effect for much of northern Manitoba this morning. South Brochet, Dooley Lake, Gillam, Shamattawa, Churchill, York. We're talking bone-chilling wind chills expected to last until later today. So, of course, that comes with warnings to just cover up or maybe just, stay inside as much as you can. It is in a little bit further south from there in Thompson. It's also still very cold right now, minus 28 right now in Thompson. And then moving down south, Brandon right now, you're sitting at minus 19 right now. Here in Winnipeg, we're at minus 20. So pretty cold, actually, pretty much top to bottom here in Manitoba. Here in Winnipeg, we will be warming up to minus 11. It will be cloudy, but then dipping down to minus 13 overnight. And then throughout southern Manitoba, even kind of heading into the rest of the week, we're looking at highs within the mid to low teens or so. So somewhat mild-ish, more mild weather coming our way, but it's still going to be cold overnight. You can expect some pretty cold nights throughout the week. If you do, as for the commute, haven't heard anything on the commuter line yet. If you're walking, biking, driving, though, or you see something on the highways, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Let's get into business news now. It's 6:37 a.m. on your Monday morning, and Christelle Ramlakan is here with her report for February 23rd. Hi there.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with U.S. President Donald Trump and how he's reacting to the Supreme Court striking down the tariffs that he's trying to implement.
Yeah, so he says he's actually going to increase global tariffs now to 15% from 10%. But goods compliant with the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, are exempt from this latest duty. However, other sectoral tariffs are still in effect on things like Canadian steel, aluminum, copper, some automotive parts, lumber, and other wood products. Now, the ruling from the Supreme Court says the president wrongfully invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to implement his levies. But now Trump says he's using a section of the U.S. Trade Act, which allows the president to impose temporary levies for 150 days. But any extension would require approval from Congress. Now, some investors believe the ruling could ease tensions between the U.S. and its trading partners, such as Canada, and result in possible refunds for affected companies. How the U.S. will proceed with refunds remains a question, though, and some estimates say the government could owe more than $175 billion in refunds to importers.
In the next hour, more analysis of the what is happening with the tariffs, because that number continues to move. You hear Trump every moment now saying something different. So we'll have an interview about it. Also, Christelle, let's go to another story you have. Some experts say young workers are taking a very different approach to climbing the corporate ladder than workers of the past. What are they doing? What's the attitude?
Well, some HR experts say building a pipeline of potential managers is getting more difficult as younger people increasingly aren't interested in leading a team. So with younger employees focusing more on work-life balance, some are foregoing the traditional climb up the corporate ladder. A survey from employment agency Robert Half found only about a third of Gen Z workers are interested in management roles, and about half would prefer a promotion into a role where they are not managing others. So the change has led to some organizations making structural shifts. In 2023, Shopify revamped its staffing and compensation model to split staff into two career tracks, managers and crafters, with equivalent compensation for both tracks. So the company said the model would reward people for their impact, regardless of whether they manage people or not, kind of bucking that trend of companies only incentivizing and rewarding managers. And some experts say companies navigating a shorter supply of managers could work to recognize leadership qualities in people's careers early on, and then begin to support them with training and development to foster their skills.
It's interesting to see, though, if the compensation is the same on both sides, whether or not people would still choose to manage others.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very difficult. Finally, here's to, well, I was going to say stinky story, but maybe beautifully scented story, depending on how you feel about Axe, the body spray. How are they addressing the fact that some teens are overusing their product?
Well, you know what? It appears Axe body spray is well aware of its reputation, so it's encouraging young people to tone it down. And the brand is doing this by rolling out new bottles with more control, it says. So the company says a new spray mechanism delivers a lighter, more controlled application. And to promote the change, Axe is running a campaign called The History of Overdoing It. Now, the new bottle is smaller at 2.9 ounces compared to 4 ounces before, but the company says that's because of the new lighter spray technology, not because there's less product. Now, while Axe's estimated market share of deodorant spray has steadily shrunk, it still ranks second in the category behind Dove, and both are owned by Unilever. And, the Axe brand once relied on more edgy, sexually forward marketing, but the brand has really leaned into humor and kind of poking fun of itself recently.
You ever been in a place? I was in a restaurant once and a teen boy walked by the table and I was like, wow. I think the whole bottle was on his skin. So
Yes, I'm sure lots of parents and teachers have maybe experienced that. But I guess it's, like pick your poison. Do you want them to not use it or maybe use a little too much? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I've been in the gym when we're playing senior women's volleyball right after the basketball game clears up, and wow. He's smelling salts after all the teens leave. Sorry, teens, we've all been there, but all right. Thanks, Crystal Lee.
All right, thanks, Marcy.
Sorry, I always apologize because someone's eating their breakfast. But Crystal Lee Ramlichan with us on CBC with business news. Well, we've got some serious chill out music this morning. So if you're just easing into things and your alarm maybe just went off and you're getting ready for Monday, have a listen to the Astronomics. This tune's called It's Been You. They're the freshest neo-soul group on the Winnipeg scene. You're on CBC 89.3 FM.
I've tried to give my heart away. Thought I'd found the one before. Never stay, leave me crying at the door. But then I saw you standing there, like an arrow through my soul. The sun was shining in your hair.
Pretty, eh? That's the Astronomics. They are out of Winnipeg, and that is their latest music. It's called It's Been You.
Did you know that Volkswagen has its own brand of sausages? And Rolls-Royce makes honey. How about a nice frothy Suzuki cappuccino? Tasty marketing. Car companies in the food business on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Tomorrow morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on demand on CBC Listen.
The fire hose of news from America can feel like a lot these days.
If you're trying to figure out what to make of it all, we got you.
I'm Katie Simpson.
And I'm Paul Hunter. We're correspondents here in Washington.
Working just around the corner from where much of the action is taking place.
2 blocks from the White House.
And that's the name of our new podcast.
For top-notch analysis of U.S. politics from a Canadian perspective, find 2 blocks from the White House on CBC Listen and wherever you get your podcasts.
It is 12 minutes to 7 o'clock. Now, at 7 o'clock, we'll get the very latest on Puerto Vallarta. And ahead of that, Heather Wells is going to be in with our Manitoba headlines, which include what it's been like for some Manitobans who are there. As you likely know, Puerto Vallarta is an area of extreme concern right now. In fact, Canadians who are there, Manitobans there, have been asked to shelter in place. So Winnipeg, a spokesperson for the Airports Authority, says as of last night, 3 flights to Puerto Vallarta from Winnipeg have been canceled. And one actually was diverted. So this is all because of violence that has erupted, turmoil across Mexico. And this is a cartel leader was killed, and then the cartel violence broke out and spilled into the largely resort city. And so lots of tourism there. A lot of Manitobans know this place and travel there. So you get the very latest on what is happening from Heather and on World Report coming up at the top of the clock. It is right now, as I mentioned, 12 minutes to 7. I'm Marcy Marcusa. You're on CBC. We have something special coming up this week that I want to talk about, and that is we're going to be live. Now, we might be a bit ambitious because it's really cold. Like today, it's minus 20, and it feels like minus 32 for most of the day in Winnipeg with a high of minus 11. But we thought we better go out and enjoy winter and talk to people who love being outside. And not only that, but they choose to be outside for their morning winter commutes. So on Wednesday, we're doing a special program. We are going to be live at the Forks from 7 to 8:30 for the majority of our show down on the ice. Right outside the Forks Market. Bike Winnipeg's going to come. They're going to come with some coffee and such for folks. Corey's going to be on the river trail with the person that whose job it is to clear the trail for you with the Zamboni. We've got some commuters that are going to be joining us as well. And then we have a panel discussion that's going to be on the program Wednesday live from the Forks on the Ice about Winnipeg as a winter city. Where are we succeeding and where do our challenges still lie? And we'll talk about that, with 2 people who've been involved with active transportation for years. And one of them actually who consults with other cities as well about winter active transportation. And one who actually lives legally blind and talks about what that's like to be navigating the city. Both of them celebrate the River Trail, but they say we do have work to do. So we have a special show lined up on Wednesday morning. And if you want to come down and see us at the Forest, Corey and I would love that. We're told that we will have a fire pit rolling, and we hope so. So if you want to bring the kids down maybe on your morning, you have a little bit of time to swing by with some marshmallows, we'd love to see you as part of our broadcast. So that's on Wednesday live from the Forks. Well, this morning, as I mentioned, if you're out, it is brisk, minus 20. And for most of the day, it's going to feel like minus 32. But our actual high, as I mentioned, is minus 11. Well, next on the show, if you were with us last week, you might have heard the owner of Wild West Seasonings, based in Headingley, Manitoba, talking about his trade mission down to Mexico.
We haven't been into Mexico before, but our primary interest on this trip is to bring our powdered tomato clam cocktail mix down here because the Mexicans are big with their beer and clam. So we're hoping to tap into that market. We actually never did break into the U.S. market. We're just still trying to do that. And that just hasn't happened for us yet. So we thought we'd try Mexico instead right now.
That was Dallas Schwartz. He joined us via Zoom from Guadalajara last week. He was down with that big federal trade mission trying to make ties into Mexico before, obviously, all of this violence erupted down around Puerto Vallarta. We have Shauna Hemingway on with us to talk about, now that those folks are back from the trade mission, what it accomplished. And she is based actually in Mexico City. She took part in the trade mission. She's a senior special advisor for Mexico and the Americas with the Business Council of Canada. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd be remiss if I don't start by asking you about the violence since you were in Mexico City. What's your perspective on the outbreak there?
Yes, we have seen outbreaks like this. What happens when they remove the leader of a major cartel, which we saw yesterday, is that the cartel reacts and first of all is trying to create disruption for any other military operations, but then it's to establish control over their territory and to be a deterrent to other cartels. So while it's very concerning and certainly there are dramatic images that we're seeing, there's no targeting of tourists and the civilian population, but very important that people shelter in place and follow local instructions so that they don't risk being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Obviously, we'll get more reporting at the top of the clock, as I mentioned, on World Report. If we turn our attention to the trade mission, which is, of course, the purpose of you speaking with us this morning in the bigger way here, obviously the scale was huge. We heard from Dallas Schwartz. He said that actually this push from Canada was so helpful. They had hundreds of people interested, conferences, very well organized. What opportunities did you see for businesses in Manitoba?
That's a great summary of the importance of the mission. And I was interested to hear the interview before, just saying that they were exploring the Mexican market before really breaking into the U.S. And it is so interesting. We have to play to our strengths, but it shows again how much we have in common. I think there was a reference to powder for sort of clamato juice. And that is something that I've seen in Mexico and I've seen in Canada. And interestingly, nowhere else that I've been posted. So it's interesting that we do have those connections with Mexico. But what was important, I think, for companies in Manitoba is to seek out those opportunities to strengthen our exports to Mexico, and particularly in your region. So we have canola and wheat, potato products, and pork being very, very important and opportunities for us. As well as aerospace and agricultural machinery. All of these areas are ways in which we can see more exports going down to Mexico in the next little while. And we want to attract as well Mexican capital and investment up to Canada to support what we're trying to do with our economy in the face of shifting trade policy changes and of course as we work towards the review and renewal of the USMCA this year.
We had a number of different businesses from Manitoba as part of this delegation, but I'm using Dallas as an example since we spoke with him here directly on the program. He said he felt well received by Mexican businesses and in the community. He also said he made some ties, sending samples down of his products to see if he could get in directly. So there's already a relationship building. But what would you say overall, though, about how this mission was received by Mexico's business community?
The mission was very well received, and in fact, I think the Mexicans have a nuanced understanding of the Canadian market. I'd say that Mexicans understand the differences and distinction between Canadians and people from the United States in a way that few countries do understand. And that can be a real advantage when we're looking to trade. They recognize what Canada brings to the table, innovation, a really great business attitude, an environment, very much a win-win approach. And I think that came out in how they were received. Mexico's been absolutely consistent and constant in terms of wanting to ensure that we have a trilateral space going forward, that we maximize North America's capacity to compete with the rest of the world. And so they were very pleased to see this engagement at the scale that we came down. The rooms were, full to overflowing with standing room only in the back on many occasions. And we did see already a number of agreements and memorandums of understanding being signed that will pave the way for us to deepen that engagement going forward.
I understand there's already talk of maybe even a spring trade mission going down there. Concretely, how much how much talk was there about shipping routes out of curiosity? We're obviously really leading into that right now because of Churchill.
Absolutely. I think there was a great deal of talk about that, about expanding the opportunities between Canada and Mexico, and that does include port development, of course, will be very important going forward. But we've also seen a pretty important expansion of the flight connections to various cities in Mexico, and they carry cargo as well as people. And that's important, particularly if you're looking at agricultural products that need to get to market quite quickly. That's still very important. And then we have the rail connection. So we have CPKC, a Canadian company that has connected all three countries in North America by rail, and as well CN Rail, of course, which carries products down to the south of the United States where they can be shipped onward to Mexico. So there's tons of connections, and we really need to maximize the use of those connections and the use of our trilateral agreement, which brings benefits to all of us.
Thank you very much for being with us, Shauna. I appreciate your time.
Great. It's my pleasure.
Shauna Hemingway, the Senior Special Advisor for Mexico and the Americas with the Business Council of Canada. She was on this recent trade mission along with, many others across the country, including Manitoba businesses that we were citing as well. They are back. Of course, all eyes are still on Mexico this morning. We returned Mexico City, but people are watching what's developing in Puerto Vallarta. Heather Wells in with the latest from a Manitoba perspective in a moment. Also, I just want to mention that after 7 o'clock on the program, if you were one of the people up bright and early yesterday morning watching that heartbreaking hockey game, you weren't alone. A lot of people actually headed out. You might know that they open restaurants and bars really early in Manitoba for like a one-day only go watch Olympic hockey. CBC was at one of those spaces in St. James, and we're going to take you there to hear from the fans. In addition, in the next hour of the show, we're going to find out how people can screen for colon cancer at home and why Cancer Care says more people should be testing for this. Of course, this is highlighted in the news because of the loss of James Vanderbeek and Catherine O'Hara, both which struggle with colorectal cancer. So a lot of people are just kind of leaning in and asking more about it. And so we'll do that too in the next hour. Right now, here's Heather Wells with the latest headlines to 7 o'clock.
Good morning. Well, Winnipegger Ed Johnner stays in Puerto Vallarta for several months every year. He says yesterday he and his wife were in downtown Puerto Vallarta when they noticed smoke all around the Bay Area. At first, they thought it was a wildfire, but then they started hearing yelling and gunshots on the street below their balcony. We're going to hear the latest from them. As well, a flight diverted and at least 3 flights canceled from Winnipeg to Puerto Vallarta yesterday, marking 4 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Hundreds gathered at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg. Dozens also marched in Brandon. We'll take you to those rallies in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Weather here, -20 in Winnipeg, -21 in Brandon, -29 up in Thompson. Today in Winnipeg, a high -11, but beware because with wind chill, it'll feel more like -32. So it's going to be very brisk. To say the least, it was like this yesterday as well. There's also a yellow level cold warning. This is for parts up north. Brochet, Dooley, Gillam, Shamattawa, Churchill, York. All of you expecting some extreme cold weather today. Stay with us on CBC. We have World Report coming up next. And as you can imagine, we're hearing from Canadians all over Puerto Vallarta now from all parts of our country. So we'll have the very latest on the situation there and more in a moment.
Today on The Current.
And that's part of the reason why I wanted to write this book, to let people know that ultimately guilt is a good emotion.
We all feel guilt at some point in our lives for all sorts of reasons. Seems natural to feel guilty maybe for what you've done or not done or should be doing. The author Chris Moore thinks guilt has an image problem. The power of guilt, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Thousands of Canadian tourists are stranded in Mexico. Violence is spreading across parts of the country. The leader of a powerful drug cartel was killed Sunday, and now there's retaliation. Members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel are launching attacks in cities and towns in 20 states. Much of the violence is happening in vacation spots popular with tourists. The CBC's Jorge Barrera is in Mexico City. And Jorge, what is the latest?
Well, waiting to see what the day will bring. There were rumors and threats circulating of more possible violence online, but nothing serious has materialized yet this morning. But in abundance of caution, it seems some states have decided, like Jalisco, which includes Puerto Vallarta, have closed schools today. And the state also said that its public transportation system would remain suspended over the next few hours, which that could change depending if things calm. Also in the state of Mexico, which sits next to Mexico City, schools were also suspended. Mexican authorities have been working to reestablish order throughout the country, but it seems that Jalisco was the epicenter of the violence. Authorities last evening said that the state was hit with 65 blockades, but by last night, all had been cleared except for 4. There was a total of 252 blockades across 20 states, and roughly around 20 remained in place as of last night, according to Mexican authorities.
There are thousands of Canadians in Mexico right now. What is the situation for them?
Global Affairs is advising people to exercise a high degree of caution, follow the advice of local authorities, and keep an eye on the news and official channels. But That's easier said than done for Canadians who are, in the middle of this. Here's what Yogi Omar from Vancouver, who's vacationed in Puerto Vallarta, had to say.
It's really hard to get information around here, and there's a lot of people really scared. So I don't know who to trust and what to trust in terms of information.
There's a lot of fake news out there, a lot of fake images. What the government is advising is to follow official channels.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you.
The CBC's Jorge Barrera in Mexico City. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he will only accept a peace deal that is good for his country. Tomorrow marks 4 years since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. Zelensky is under pressure from the Trump administration to compromise to get a deal. But he told Radio-Canada's Le Téléjournal he will not compromise for compromise sake.
We are ready for compromises when it goes about compromises, not about ultimatums from Russia. To withdraw without any kind of reasons, just to withdraw from our territory, our land, we stay, we control it. Just to withdraw, it's between us, it's bullshit.
Zelensky says the U.S. must force Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war on Ukraine. Fresh allegations about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor are emerging. The former prince is accused of using taxpayers' money for massages and excessive travel while he was a trade envoy. There are calls for a full inquiry into the former royal's conduct while in public office and his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has the latest from London.
Retired civil servants have told the BBC that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor built government departments for massage services. Whistleblowers also claim the then prince booked entire hotel floors during his travel as a trade envoy. One civil servant says they were overruled when they refused to pay the massage costs.
This is about trust.
Says Tom Tugendhat, a former security minister under the last British Conservative government. He wants to see a full-scale inquiry into who knew what and when. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has always denied any wrongdoing in his connections with the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein and rejected profiting personally from his role as a trade envoy. But the ongoing police investigations are leading to wider questions about the monarchy.
The mood has changed quite significantly and it is darkened.
Says Charlie Faulkner, a Labour peer and former British Justice Secretary.
The mood is now, do we need new arrangements?
Questions about changing the monarchy have always existed.
The support for the monarchy is going down.
Says Graham Smith from the anti-monarchy pressure group Republic. He too wants an inquiry into how the royals operate.
This is part of the sea change that needs to happen.
At least 9 police forces across England and Scotland are investigating Epstein's links to the UK, including allegations his plane landed at an Air Force base. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has not been charged and was released Thursday under police investigation. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
In New Jersey, a stop sign is whipped back and forth by high winds. It is barely visible now that a massive winter storm is hammering the state. The bomb cyclone has prompted travel bans and closures from Virginia through Maine. Hundreds of thousands of customers are without power, and more than 40 million people are under blizzard warnings. The bomb cyclone is also expected to affect Atlantic Canada. Winter storm warnings have been issued for parts of all 4 provinces. Unions say federal job cuts may be disproportionately targeting legal staff in charge of Indigenous rights. More than a fifth of at-risk letters sent to the Justice Department went to staff at the Indigenous Rights and Relations Unit. As Priscilla Kisang-Kwang reports, there are fears that move could stall claims and harm reconciliation efforts.
Now is not the time to cut any support for this really important area.
Cynthia Westaway teaches Indigenous law at the University of Ottawa. She's worked as senior counsel at the Justice Department and warns significant cuts within its Indigenous Rights and Relations Unit may weaken future consultations and Indigenous inclusion, especially as the Liberal government forges ahead with massive infrastructure projects.
We're not going to make progress. So really, I think it'll affect all of Canada, frankly.
The Department of Justice plans to slash about 200 staff. So far, some 300 letters were sent to at-risk employees, and 1 in 5 of those appear to target the Indigenous Relations portfolio, the federal government's legal advisor on Indigenous rights and reconciliation. CBC's tally from several unions show about 73 employees from that unit are impacted, mostly lawyers, but also support staff who work on negotiations and policy.
We're quite concerned.
Ontario Regional Chief Abram Benedict worries this will lead to slower progress on already stalled claims and disputes, but he also sees a silver lining.
Are these an opportunity to be had in a shift in negotiations to take advantage of different, fresh perspectives at the table? So I do think that strategically it may create a risk for Canada, but at the same time could be an opportunity for First Nations.
A Justice Department spokesperson says while those who got letters are at risk, it doesn't mean all of those positions will be eliminated. Priscilla Gizon-Huang, CBC News, Ottawa.
Most people assume the information in a credit check is accurate, or if it's not, it can be fixed quickly. But our Go Public unit spoke to one woman who spent nearly 2 years fighting to get fraudulent debt removed from her credit report. The CBC's Erica Johnson has her story.
And just immediate threats. We know where you live. We're going to garnish your wages.
That's how 23-year-old Zoe Lorenz-Bozer describes the call she got at work a year and a half ago. A collections agent said she owed thousands of dollars, threatened to seize her wages and car if she didn't pay immediately. The problem? The debt wasn't hers. Someone had fraudulently opened accounts in her name, piled up about $20,000 in charges. Her credit score tanked. Lorenz-Bozer filed a police report, then contacted Canada's 2 major credit reporting agencies, Equifax and TransUnion, to dispute the debts. But that went nowhere.
I've spent so many hours of my life, I can't count.
She says she'd identify fraudulent debts and get them removed, only to see them reappear as collection agencies sold her debt from one agency to another. Consumer advocate and lawyer Neil Hartung says her case is far too common and highlights a broader issue. Canada's credit reporting agencies are regulated by a patchwork of provincial, territorial, and federal laws, making accountability complicated, he says, and weak.
So if you don't have to do better, why would you do better?
Hartung would like to see legislation that automatically awards damages if a credit reporting agency fails to take appropriate steps to correct inaccurate information. After Go Public contacted Equifax and TransUnion about Lorenz-Bozer's case, both companies said they've now fixed the errors for good. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. For more on our top story of Canadians stranded in Mexico, go to cbcnews.ca. It's on our main page. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Marcy Marcuso. This is Information Radio. You're on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It's going to be brisk and cold again here in Winnipeg. Minus 11 might be the high, but with wind chill, it's going to feel like minus 32. Well, we are thinking about Manitobans who are in a much warmer place, but they're in a place that's become stressful. Sheltering in place in Puerto Vallarta.
As I walked downtown, along the Malecon, I saw a couple of cars burning. Then there was plumes of smoke everywhere, all around the entire bay. Streets are empty. It looks like a ghost town out there.
That was one of the reports from yesterday, a Manitoban who is stuck in Puerto Vallarta, where he's going to join us live this morning to tell us what things are like since violence broke out due to a cartel head being killed. And as you've heard, flights have been turned around and canceled, and Manitobans are stuck there. So we're going to talk to him about how he's doing this morning, what he's seeing, what he knows. In addition, this hour on the show to something completely different, Donald Trump has imposed these new global tariffs after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down some of his previous tariff measures. What does that mean for Manitoba? These numbers have gone back and forth, so we're going to look at that as well. Right now, with more on the news out of Puerto Vallarta and how it's affecting the actual flight schedules, Heather Wells is here with that update. Good morning.
Good morning, yes. And first, a harrowing tale from a Winnipegger who was in Puerto Vallarta's airport when shots in the airport rang out. Wendy Bulow says everyone ran for cover. They were all told to shelter in place at the airport there. Now, here in Winnipeg, one flight was diverted and 3 flights canceled from Winnipeg to Puerto Vallarta yesterday. A WestJet flight, in fact, left Winnipeg around 6 yesterday morning, but just half an hour out from Puerto Vallarta, it landed in Cabo and then flew back to Winnipeg. A measles outbreak in Morden Winkler area is not concerning for some people who live there. That is even though Health Canada says the Southern Health Region has the most confirmed cases in Canada this year. We'll hear more on that story as well in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Corey Funk.
Right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at minus 20 at the Forks. It's going to warm up, though. Minus 11 is what we're heading for today. Going to be cloudy for the most part, though. And then cooling down just a little bit to minus 13 overnight. We expect some snow as well. Up north, though, much, much colder. Yellow cold warning in effect for Brochet, Dooley Lake, Gillam, Shamattawa, Churchill, York areas. Very, very cold wind chills expected to last until later today. So very cold up there. Reasonably cold down south here. I'll have a more of a detailed forecast for you after 7:30. But right now, in terms of the commute, the only issue I've heard of is from Maria, who said that on the southeast perimeter there, between Fermor and La Jamodiere, your left lane, your passing lane, pretty icy and pretty snow-covered, actually. So it's just not great, just for that little section there on the southeast part of the perimeter. Other than that, though, if you do see anything else going on, if you're walking, biking, driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, I don't know about you, but in my own personal social feeds, a lot of images from fellow Manitobans of blue sky and beaches and margaritas in hand all of a sudden changed to plumes of smoke in the air and shots off of balconies, photos taken, I should say, off of balconies of some of the violence happening in Puerto Vallarta. Manitobans who are there are staying inside. They're asked to shelter in place to stay safe in Puerto Vallarta. This all developing after Mexican federal authorities, just to revisit the details here, captured a powerful cartel leader yesterday morning. So during the mission, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes was shot and later died. That's according to Mexico's Secretariat of National Defense. The governor of Jalisco says that some individuals had burned vehicles and set up roadblocks to impede the authorities. Global Affairs Canada with this travel advisory now for the coastal city as parts of the states. And as I mentioned, there's a shelter-in-place order. Flights between Winnipeg and Puerto Vallarta, as Heather's been mentioning, have been canceled, including some flights that actually turned around or others that diverted, we understand. So we are still trying to verify all of these different stories, and we're asked to beware because there's a lot of images coming out online this morning as well that need to be verified. But we do know that the agency says that there are just under 19,000 Canadians in Mexico at the moment, including 5,000 in Jalisco. Now, Ed Johnner is there. He is from Winnipeg, and he joins us over Zoom. Hi there, Ed.
Hi.
So where specifically are you? Right in Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, we're pretty much right downtown in El Centro.
So we heard you yesterday describing to our news department, Ed, like that it was like a ghost town and what it was like. What's it been like for you now? What are the images that are staying in your head of what you've seen?
Well, I guess fortunately, in a way, it's an even quieter ghost town this morning. At least there's no new fires. There's no smoke. There was actually yesterday afternoon, the fires stopped. The new ones did, but this morning, it looks pretty good out there, and it's very quiet. Everybody's still in lockdown.
When you say the fires stop, where are you looking out of, and were you seeing like plumes of smoke or individual car fires? What were you seeing that was on fire?
Well, I was actually out for a walk yesterday morning when all this started. So I did see a couple of cars burning, but up from our room, we can pretty much see the entire downtown area and a lot of the bay. And there was plumes of smoke literally everywhere.
What are you thinking when you're looking at that?
Just shock, disbelief. I mean, we've been coming to Mexico for a long time, and nothing even remotely close to something like this has ever happened to us. And it's just like a scene out of a war movie.
How is information getting to you? Obviously, you're still being sheltered in place here, but I mean, how are you getting information about what to do, or even when you might be able to come home?
Social media has been just about pretty much our only that and the internet. We're getting a lot of friends are sending us information that they have and that they've gotten and so on. So the information is coming to us pretty steady.
Okay. And what's the mood where you are? Are you in a hotel or in a condo?
In an apartment.
Okay. And what's the mood like? You're obviously locked in the apartment, but are you hearing from other people in some ways, or texting back and forth maybe to folks that you might know in the complex, or?
Oh yeah, everybody's, like I said, everybody's still in lockdown, and and I think as long as you stay locked down, you should be safe. I feel pretty, all things considered, I feel pretty good.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you're going to do today in terms of what your plans might be. Are you anxious to come home, or are you going to ride this out? What are you thinking?
At this point, if conditions stay the same, we'll probably ride it out. We're going to be here another couple of weeks, so. But I mean, as far as today goes, I'm just going to monitor the situation from our patio and keep an eye on things down there, and if they give us the okay to get out and about, we will.
Who is there with you, Ed?
My wife.
Okay. And in terms of locals there, what reaction have you had from sort of the local community or the people that work where you are in the hospitality industry, the tourism industry?
Well, I haven't had a lot of contact with locals in the last couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
but yesterday, as I was walking around, everybody was very cautious and very aware of the situation. But I mean, there hasn't been a lot, like looking out over the city this morning. I've seen one or two vehicles. That's it. There's not a lot of people out and about.
How's your level of concern this morning compared to what it would have been yesterday?
I feel a little bit better. Like I said, there's no smoke. There's no, that we can see anyway. We can't see any active fires from our vantage point, and things seem pretty calm and quiet.
I think some people may have never really witnessed something like this. What did it sound like and smell like when that car was burning in front of you and you're on your walk?
Well, a little on the scary side, and even as I was looking at it, I didn't realize what was going on. I think that's I was out walking around. I hadn't gotten any real information, just kind of hearsay sort of thing. So, I mean, I probably should have been more cautious than I was.
But you don't have the context of everything yet, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So
and one thing I should mention too, my daughter and her husband are down here too. They're not staying in the same building as we are, but yeah, we've got family down here as well.
Wow, so you guys are separated.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. I'm just curious, have you reached out to the Canadian consulate at all?
No. No, we haven't.
No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ed, from your room. You've got your Hawaiian shirt on there, and I can see the sun. Looks like it's streaming through some blinds there at you. And man, what a thing to have to go through. I really hope you stay safe there. Obviously, you're staying calm for the sake of the interview here as well, but we'll be checking in with different Manitobans through the day. Are you checking in with other Manitobans as well? I'm just curious if there's maybe, you said you've been going down for a number of years. Maybe there's a cohort of people that you already know.
Oh, my phone has been going crazy.
Yeah. Everybody in the same situation as you, or anybody else caught up in some serious stuff? I hope not.
No, everybody's pretty much in lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you guys take care there and stay safe. We'll certainly check in when we can from here at home.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Take care. That's Ed Johnner with us this morning live on Zoom. It's the same time, by the way. Corey was just checking in Puerto Vallarta where he is this morning. He has a Winnipegger there. He has his kids there as well, but they're in another hotel. Flights between Winnipeg and Puerto Vallarta, as we continue to tell you, have been canceled because of the surge in violence. And you can read the latest at cbc.ca/Manitoba if you're checking on the latest developments this morning. But Ed, from his view, from the balcony, says that it seems to have calmed somewhat from yesterday.
The ocean is vast, beautiful, and lawless. I'm Ian Urbina, back with an all-new season of The Outlaw Ocean. The stories we bring you this season are literally life or death. We look into the shocking prevalence of forced labor, mind-boggling overfishing, migrants hunted and captured. The Outlaw Ocean takes you where others won't. Available on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, that's a wrap, folks. Milano Cortina Games are now behind us. We're going to get into some of the highlights of Canada's performances coming up in a few minutes. But first, some music from Adam Urish, who's a songwriter and musician from here in our city. Kind of says he likes to write neatly written indie folk tunes and then a little messy garage rock influencing it. See if you think that's what this sounds like. The title's kind of like that. This is Toilet Wall Graffiti on CBC.
By my own admission, I have wandered most my life away, watching paint dry on my shoes. My reoccurring plan to slip through quicksand daydream seems a fight I'm sure to lose. To pass the time, I conjure up this figure of a kind, sturdy and fine, with a knack for planting daydreams in my mind. And she finds meaning in toilet wall graffiti, in bathroom stalls, inspecting for intent, in search of what the author meant. She's speeding through sidewalk traffic, breathing in clouds of cigarette smoke. I thought I spotted her atop a starlit stage alive, through musings at the wall. Soon time revealed to me how hopeful, oblivious and blind I am prone to fall. Surely it stung when the waves came crashing, thrashing till it sunk. A little too drunk on idealism, missing everyone. And she finds meaning in toilet wall graffiti.
Toilet Wall Graffiti, Winnipeg's Adam Urish. It's time to turn our attention to other things than toilet wall graffiti. Scott Regaris here. Hello.
Happy to help.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, sure.
Awkward segue of the morning. Okay, let's talk about the Olympics. Milano Cortina in the books. What are your thoughts on, before we go there, yesterday's not closing ceremonies, but that heartbreaking hockey loss?
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't the best contest I've seen in my half century of watching
Right?
games, Marcy, it was close. And I'll admit, had things gone differently in overtime, I'd probably just outright would say that's the best game I've seen. Like the 72 Summit Series, there were geopolitical tensions at play. Like the 87 Canada Cup, there was a band of A-listers that warranted a red carpet to the dressing rooms. And like the Salt Lake and Vancouver Olympic finals, not to mention the Four Nations Cup last year, there was the same vile nemesis. But this time, there was also something else at play. The hockey gods seem to have picked their winner. How else do you explain, Marcy, McDavid and Celebrini missing those breakaways, Connor Hellebuck getting his paddle on Devon Taves' seemingly routine tap-in, or Nathan MacKinnon shooting wide with the whole net open? If you saw McKinnon's face in the silver medal receiving line, you know he's going to be haunted about this for a long while to come. Here is Nathan MacKinnon.
We have a visitor, maybe not a streaker.
Just disappointed. I don't know. It just sucks. It's a lot bigger than your club team. It's your country, and it's every 4 years. So it's going to be a long time before we get to try to win this one back, and it'll be a completely different team too. So it just sucks.
All right, so that goes for fans around the country, including my two sisters in Vancouver who never watch hockey, but got up at 5 a.m. to tune in, and they were even more gutted than I was when this was done. They texted to ask Marcy why the Americans were skating around the ice with a jersey with the name Goudreau on it.
Oh, yeah.
And I told them how Johnny Goudreau would have been playing in this game had he and his brother Matthew not died in that cycling accident, and how the whole Goudreau family was in the arena in Milan, including his kids, who were brought out onto the ice to be part of the team picture. Johnny Goudreau Jr. was the youngest in that photo. He turned 2 yesterday.
Yeah.
And so geopolitics aside, maybe the right team did win.
And I will just give a Winnipeg shout out to Hellebuck, obviously.
Oh, my
and,
gosh.
Yeah.
He was the difference.
yeah.
Binnington was very good. Hellebuck was incredible.
Yeah. And of course to Kyle Connor and Morrissey, who didn't have the game surely that they wanted, but still have silver medals around their neck.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the medals, this was one of 21 medals Canadians won at the games, below expectations. What are your thoughts on what's ahead?
That more, unfortunately, of the same to come. Canada's 8th place finish was its lowest in 34 years, and many of the athletes, Marcy, who did make the podium in these games were competing in their final Olympics. The reality is, with no government funding for national sports organizations dating more than 20 years back now, it's too expensive for regular kids to get involved in sport. Here's Canada's chef de mission, Jennifer Howe.
We're creating a pay-to-play system in Canada where wealth and luck are some of the major determining factors as to who gets to stand on a podium. My Olympic dream started at a gas station in Edmonton when I picked up Olympic preview. I want every kid to pick up a magazine or see, the sports and have that dream be a real reality for them.
Heil says the average cost to the Canadian athletes who are at these games, and this is personal money, $25,000.
Wow.
Nothing grassroots about that.
What's your highlight?
I'd love to say it was an athlete who overcame the odds to win a medal, but instead, my highlight was this.
We have a visitor, maybe not a streaker, but we certainly have somebody who wants to be part of the Olympic action.
The crowd clearly enjoying this.
The biggest cheer of the day is not for any of the skiers so far.
The biggest cheer of the day in cross-country skiing's women's team event was for that Czechoslovakian wolf dog named Nazgul.
Yeah.
Right? Who escaped from a nearby house and chased racers, some of them a little bit unsettled, to the finish line. So, grazie, Nazgul. That was fun.
Because at first people thought he was a wolf, right? They're like, what is going on?
He looked like a wolf.
I know. Thanks for your coverage, Scott, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
You betcha.
Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is frigid end of February, at least for today. Minus 20 is where we're at right now. We will warm up to minus 11, but that strong south wind is going to give us a risk of frostbite, especially this morning. Expect some snow later on tonight. Violence in a vacation hotspot. A military helicopter swooping over the Mexican city of Puerto Vallarta. Authorities across the country are preparing for more violence. The drug lord known as El Mencho was killed in a military operation on Sunday, and his cartel is retaliating. There have been shootouts, roadblocks, vehicles set on fire. Global Affairs Canada is now advising people to exercise a high degree of caution if they are in Mexico. Now, a Winnipegger is one of dozens stranded at Puerto Vallarta's airport, waiting and wondering how she'll get home. Wendy Bulow says they passed burned cars to get to their WestJet flight back to Winnipeg yesterday. She says her husband was already through security when all of a sudden she heard what sounded like gunfire.
Everybody was running. I was hiding behind a pillar for a bit. And then we started running towards where the check-in kiosks are and jumping through where you'd put your luggage away and just sort of running over there. And then the airport staff were guiding us into this corridor and put us in a little room.
Bulow says she and her husband were told to run into her husband rather was told to run into a field, and eventually they did reunite. She says everyone's desperate for information, but there are no WestJet staff at Puerto Vallarta's airport. And Bulow worries about people with young children at the airport with nothing to eat except chips and chocolate bars. Well, one flight to Puerto Vallarta was diverted back to Winnipeg yesterday because of that violence. The WestJet flight left Winnipeg 6 in the morning, but was diverted just half an hour out from Puerto Vallarta. It landed in Cabo and then flew back to Winnipeg. Lorna Friesen was among the dozens of passengers.
I was really surprised. I've been to PV 7 times before, and I've never seen any activity of cartel or anything. So it was a little bit of a surprise.
Friesen says if things in Mexico settle down, she might try to go, but otherwise she will wait until next year. A spokesperson for the Winnipeg Airports Authority says that as of 5:20 last night, 3 flights to Puerto Vallarta from Winnipeg had been canceled. You can hear the latest on what is happening in Mexico coming up on World Report at 8. A measles outbreak in the Morden-Winkler area isn't concerning for some people who live there. That's even though Health Canada says the Southern Health region has the most confirmed cases in Canada this year. Maddie Friesen isn't worried.
People are making a little bigger deal of it than it actually is. If you get it, it sucks, but what can you really do, you know? You get it, you get better, you get the antibiotics, and you're good to go.
Public Health says lower vaccination rates are the main reason for the measles outbreak. There have been 24 measles admissions to hospitals since the start of the southern Manitoba outbreak in January 2025. 2 of those patients ended up in intensive care. Well, hundreds of people stood with Ukraine yesterday at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. Solomia Hoy is a grade 12 student who fled Ukraine and now lives in Winnipeg. She admits to sometimes feeling bad for escaping the country while many of her family and friends remain in Ukraine.
I can't feel what they feel. I can't feel that danger because I am in a safe place.
Dozens also marched in Brandon, chanting the battle cry of Ukraine, marching from Brandon University to City Hall. Oleksandr Ryaby moved from Ukraine 3 years ago. While he and his family are building a new life in Canada, he says their hearts are in Ukraine. Ryaby says it is frustrating diplomatic efforts have so far failed to end the war.
I can't say nothing good because, all people just struggle in Ukraine, here in Canada as well, because we all our souls over there in Ukraine, and it's horrible.
Tuesday marks 4 years since the Russian invasion began. And millions of people across the U.S. are in the path of a powerful storm.
This will be something the likes of which we've not seen in years.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul warning people not to try to outsmart Mother Nature. A low-pressure system is fueling a winter bomb cyclone affecting areas from Virginia to Maine. More than 250,000 customers have lost power. Tens of millions of people are under blizzard warnings, as some areas could see more than 60 centimeters of snow. Now, there are several travel bans in place, and schools in many cities, including New York and Boston, are closed. Parts of Atlantic Canada could also experience this nor'easter. Winter storm warnings are in effect across the region. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Into the regional forecast now and have a look at your morning commute this Monday, February 23rd with Corey Funk.
Yeah, start up north. There's a yellow cold warning in effect for much of the high north. We're talking about Gillam, Brochet, to Dooley Lake, Churchill, York areas. Just because of that really, really, really cold wind chill this morning. That is expected to taper off by the end of the day. But right now, that wind chill is really going to be biting up there. So heads up up north this morning. Let's stay up north. Minus 27 right now in Thompson. You're going to be heading for a high today of minus 20. And actually some snow starting this morning. You're going to get about 2 to 4 centimeters of snow today. Heading down to Brandon, minus 22 right now, heading for a high today of minus 11. Cloudy is going to be most of what the sky's looking like for you. In Dauphin, minus 20, heading for a high today of minus 10. You got a chance of flurries throughout the morning, but then also overnight, you're going to get about 5 centimeters of snow. It's actually a similar case here in Winnipeg. So minus 20 right now, heading for a high today of minus 11. Cloudy throughout the day, but then overnight, we are going to get about 5 centimeters of snow as well as what's forecast. It's going to dip down to minus 13 and then cloudy again tomorrow here in Winnipeg. Right now, the Forks are sitting at minus 20. As for the commute, it's been pretty quiet overall. The one thing I've heard of is from Maria, who says that southeast perimeter there between Lagimodiere and Fermor, you lose your far left, your passing lane to some snow and ice. I guess you can kind of drive it, but it's not great conditions in that particular part of the southeast perimeter. So look out there. But if you have any more updates for me, if you're walking, you're biking, you're driving, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey Funk.
Thank you.
Well, let's go on an emotional journey together, shall we? Were you one of those people that was up early yesterday watching the men's Olympic hockey game from Milano Cortino? Of course, in the end, we all know what happened now. Of course, we know that Team Canada lost to the United States in 3-on-3 overtime. But man, they outplayed them. And let's go on the emotional journey that started not with the sadness of the end result, but with the excitement. You might know that a lot of places were open early and had their big screens on watching the game. So people put on their Team Canada jerseys and heading on down to a number of different places, including Underdogs Sports Bar and Grill. That's out on Portage Avenue in St. James. CBC's Gavin Axelrod was there before the game started, up early, talking to fans.
When you heard that this game was going to be at like 7 a.m. on a Sunday, how hard was it for you to decide to get up out of bed?
Andrew Blanchette. Not hard at all. I mean, I think I've had this one in my phone locked in for a few weeks here. So it's time, and you get up, and there's nothing better than this.
Mike Lancaster, just super jacked to watch Canada. Biggest rivalry in sports, yeah. Just excited to get out once, it doesn't happen every day, the Olympics, so yeah. This is my youngest daughter, or my daughter, Nadia. Sorry.
Nadia, how are you feeling for the game?
Good.
Who do you think is going to win?
Canada.
Are you tired this morning? How are you feeling?
Not tired.
Not tired? What are you most excited for in the hockey game today?
I don't know.
As you heard there, people with their little ones up early yesterday morning. Now, I mentioned we're going on a journey of emotions. So people started with anticipation, ready for Canada and the U.S. to face each other in the gold medal match. Now, let's take you to Canada tying things up because the U.S. scored first. Canada ties it up. These are local fans after the end of the second.
Cass, Fraser, Tegan, Breers.
How did you feel when Cale Makar scored there?
So excited. And the energy in the room was crazy. Everybody was so excited. Everybody was cheering, and it was super fun.
Yeah, it's like my soul left my body a bit, so.
How does it feel, I guess, cheering against Connor Hellebuck? Usually he's the Jets goalie, today he's with the States.
It feels kind of like we're a little bit of traitors, but, he's not Canadian, so what can I say? It's too bad.
Do you have a prediction for the rest of the game here?
We think that we're gonna get tied up in the third and then go into overtime and we're gonna win.
Right, at Underdogs yesterday. We did go into overtime, but then alas, as I mentioned at the end of the game, Canada would take silver, the U.S. takes gold 2-1, and many are saying one of the best games they've ever seen of hockey played in their lives. So finally, let's hear from those Manitobans who were down at Underdog Sports Bar yesterday after the OT loss.
Zachary Grisbenek. It sucked. The silence in here was very, very quiet. Was not expecting that. Yeah.
Came pretty quick, didn't it?
It came pretty quick. I would think they would have had a little bit longer in the game, but...
Nicole, the kids that played well, but sad because, I don't know, they just play so well, and it's just heartbreaking because this is a beautiful time for Canada to come together. Everyone from all walks of life, we just gather together, and it's heartbreaking, but it's also inspiring because they're so young and talented. Like Celebrini, what's coming next for them, right? So we have to be, as Canadian, positive in the moment and graceful.
How did Celebrini not score? Man. All right, that was yesterday. Underdog Sports Bar and Grill. A lot of Winnipeggers up early to watch that U.S. Olympic gold medal match. Canada takes silver. I just want to, before we leave the Olympic news here, want to shout out the Manitoba connections to the team. So first of all, Mark Stone, right, originally from Winnipeg, playing on Team Canada. Also on the women's team, Katie Tabin, who was on the show Friday with Corey, and Jocelyn Larocque. So Katie Tabin at the beginning of her career, that was her first games. Jocelyn Larocque from Winnipeg. Jocelyn Larocque from St. Anne, of course, a veteran on the team. And then on the ice yesterday, Seth Jarvis, who I thought had a really good game, and Travis Sanheim. So shouting out all the Olympians, and congrats to Team Canada.
The PWHL is back for the third season of heart-stopping women's hockey. And this season, there are two new teams looking to make their mark on the ice. The Seattle Torrent and Vancouver Golden Eyes. When the world's best women's hockey players face off, anything can happen. Will the Minnesota Frost achieve a three-peat? Will a new team take home the trophy? There's only one way to find out. Watch the PWHL for free on CBC Gem.
7:43 a.m. still ahead. Coming up, we're going to find out how people can screen for colon cancer at home and why Cancer Care says more people should be testing for it. It's on a lot of people's minds after learning of the cause of death for Catherine O'Hara and also for James Vanderbeek last week. Just a couple of big headlines being made, but we're going to talk to Cancer Care here. 7:43, as I mentioned, -20. We've got a couple of calls about your morning commute today if you're on the way to work here. We got calls from Greg and Ross. They both said Centerport Canada Way is very backed up right now. So both north and southbound. Northbound and southbound. They aren't sure why. So if you have information from that area, give us a call on the commuter line and we'll pass it along. And thanks for the calls already. 788-3093. You can reach Corey, 788-3093. Well, next, let's get to a bit of business news that also was developing through the weekend here. Government and business leaders all around the world are trying to make sense of the chaotic tariff mess that's unfolding down south. On Friday, the United States Supreme Court struck down Donald Trump's emergency tariffs that affected economies across much of the globe. Now, the ruling says the president overstepped his authority and had no legal basis to impose those measures. In a press conference after the ruling, Trump said this.
Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long. That I can assure you.
So over the weekend, the president followed up on the warning by imposing a new 15% global tariff through different legislative means. For some clarity on this, Colin Mang's with us this morning, assistant professor of economics over at McMaster University. Good morning, Colin.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So this is like a moving target once again in terms of the numbers. What's the current state of tariffs in Canada?
Yeah, that's a good question because there's been a lot of tariffs thrown around over the past year. The U.S. Supreme Court's ruling eliminates President Trump's general tariffs on the rest of the world, but it does not affect specific sectoral tariffs on steel, aluminum, copper, lumber, or the automotive products, because those were made under a different piece of legislation that's linked directly to U.S. national security. Trump's new 15% tariffs that he announced on Friday to replace the ones that the Supreme Court struck down, those ones have an exemption for Canada and Mexico under the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. So from our perspective here, the tariff situation is actually exactly the same as it was last week. There's sectoral tariffs on specific Canadian products, but there's no new tariffs on Canadian products.
Tariffs have been Trump's focus for obviously the past year, and given what we've seen over the weekend, where do you see this strategy going?
Yeah, I mean, when we look ahead to what his options are, because he still does want to impose tariffs, The idea of blanket global tariffs is pretty much off the table. The new ones that he brought in on Friday, they're time limited to 150 days. It's pretty clear that the U.S. Congress is not going to extend them beyond that period. So what he can do is he can impose specific tariffs for national security reasons. So the steel, aluminum, lumber tariffs are an example of that. His administration has also opened up investigations into what else could be considered national security sectors, so they might be able to have some other specific tariffs. Now, one of the other things that he can do, though, is he can impose retaliatory tariffs on countries that the United States believes are engaging in unfair trade practices. That's been the basis for U.S. tariffs on China. It's also a concern for us here in Canada because the American administration opened up an investigation into Canada's dairy sector last summer. They're accusing Canada of, because of the nature of the supply management system, keeping out American dairy exports, so loss of business opportunity by failure to export to Canada. They're also accusing Canadian dairy farmers of taking the surplus milk that they're not allowed to sell in Canada because of supply management and dumping it into the U.S. market at below market prices. The investigation is expected to wrap up in March with the final report. That could actually lead to retaliatory tariffs on Canadian goods if the U.S. believes that we're engaging in unfair trade practices.
I think a lot of us, across the country, and certainly in Manitoba, are watching the CUSMA review because most of our goods here are affected by that, though we have obviously steel in Selkirk. How might this ruling, what's just happened here with the Supreme Court in the States and with what Trump is saying, influence how the U.S. approaches the upcoming CUSMA review, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is certainly going to change their strategy. The obvious strategy that they otherwise would have played is to simply threaten to leave the free trade agreement and impose blanket tariffs on Canada or Mexico if we fail to make concessions. And that strategy is now off the table because they're not going to be able to impose blanket tariffs. There's the issue of the sectoral tariffs, but that was already a trade issue. The steel, aluminum, cars, dairy. We already knew that those were going to form the basis for the renegotiation this summer. From the American perspective, we did see when they were holding hearings back in the fall, U.S. business lobbies going to Washington, the construction industry, the auto industry, the retailers, the travel and tourism industry, and the airlines, all of them lined up to say they wanted the free trade agreement to remain in place. They did not want the United States to get out of it. They like business conditions the way they are, and they want to see that agreement continue. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the United States administration to come to an agreement sooner rather than later. I think this ruling actually makes it more likely that they'll come to an agreement sooner rather than later because it removes a key piece of leverage that they otherwise would have had.
All right, Colin, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
That's Colin Mang. He's an assistant professor in economics over at McMaster University. Time right now is 11 minutes to 8 o'clock. You are with CBC's Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. It's minus 20 in the city this morning. And in Winnipeg today, a high of minus 11. It will feel more like minus 32, though, so beware of that. When you see minus 11, sometimes you think, oh, it'll be nice, but that wind chill is going to make it really brisk. We're expecting snow tonight, by the way, about 5 centimeters, and then tomorrow, overcast and a high minus 12. Brandon's really similar to us today, high minus 11, but it's going to feel like minus 30, a little snow tonight. And up in Thompson, a 30% chance of flurries today, about 2 to 4 centimeters. Your high is minus 20, and it's really cold up north. In fact, a yellow level warning about the cold is issued for Brochet, Tuduli, Gillam, Shamattawa, Churchill, and York. So bundle up as we start the week really frigid. Next on the show, colorectal cancer is one of the most common cancer diagnoses in Manitoba. And we're about to talk about it because of the numbers. Cancer Care Manitoba has around 900 people, around 900 people are diagnosed with colon cancer every year in our province, and more than 300 of them die. Now, a lot of people have colon cancer on the mind, though, for another reason, because it's recently made headlines. Following the death of Dawson's Creek star James Vanderbeek, he was only 48. He died earlier this month. Vanderbeek told reporters he ignored some of the early warning signs of colon cancer. In addition, Irish and Canadian comedy legend Catherine O'Hara died of a blood clot in her lung, but the coroner in LA says she had underlying rectal cancer. Now, in 2022, Manitoba introduced fecal immunochemical testing, known as FIT. This is for people over 50. It's a test that can be done at home to screen for colon cancer, which is a big thing because part of the problem here is a lot of people don't make appointments to go get colonoscopies, though they should. So let's talk about this home test with Wiosa Chikosa, who's with us with Cancer Care. She's a health educator there, and she's here via Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning, Chelsea. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. So how does a FIT test work?
All right. So just so people know, FIT test is used to screen for colon cancer. Okay. And it basically means fecal immunochemical test. So we just pick the first letters, FIT. And it's a test that we send home to people who are eligible to have it, and then they can screen for colon cancer. A very simple test. All they have to do is, go to the washroom, have their poop, take a little sample of it, send it back to us, and then we test, analyze, and send back the results to them within 2 to 3 weeks.
So you're doing this in the privacy of your own home. If you just lay toilet paper all the way over all of the water, it's just going to catch what you're doing, and then you just very simply use this long stick, right? And you get in there. It's pretty easy, right?
It's pretty easy, yes. So whatever thing we're sending to you, there's a flushable tissue paper that you just lay in the toilet. Once you have your poop, take a little sample, and that's it.
Why do you think that only about half of the kits sent out are being completed? Because that's Cancer Care data. How concerning is that, and why do you think people don't do this?
This is interesting. We would love everybody to be doing this. But we still see that at times people don't. So most times we want to go out there and educate the public more, on the importance of doing this. So we feel like, when people get to know, and that's why I'm excited that you are doing this right now. So when people get to hear this, they know, oh, the test is something that you can do in the comfort of your home. And so why don't I get it?
Yep. Tell us why it's important. What are some of the early signs and symptoms that people might miss?
Most times people with colon cancer might have persistent change in bowel habits. So when you notice that, please go and see your doctor. If you also notice persistent abdominal pain or bloating, that's a sign. Please see or speak with your healthcare provider. And finally, if you go take a poop and you look at it, it has blood in it. Most people don't really take out time to look at their poop. I understand they feel like, oh, why should I look at my poop? But please just try as much as possible. Look at it. And if you find blood in it, then go speak with your provider. Another thing also we want to tell people, because even though we say eligibility is 50 years and above, we advise that if you have a first-degree family member who has come down with colon cancer, then you should be speaking with your healthcare provider because we need to start screening you.
When you say a change in bowel habits, in what way? Because someone might be thinking, well, I'm kind of constipated, or maybe I've got sort of diarrhea, everything's looser in there, but they think, oh, it's probably something I ate. Or is it the shape or size of the movement? This is important health information. So what kind of changes are people watching for? Yeah.
So if you notice, I use the word persistent, right? So you might eat something, food poisoning and have a diarrhea and it stops 1, 2, that's fine. But if it is persistent, no matter the shape, size, whatever it is, if you just notice that, they haven't this bowel movement this way, there's a change over some certain amount of time, then please go see your healthcare provider.
Is it also that people often talk about, like I'm holding up my pen here, a pencil size of a movement can be sort of a sign. Is it skinnier can be an issue? A skinnier? No, not necessarily. Okay, that's
not
important.
Necessarily. So people do have skinny poop, right?
Yep.
As their regular one. So if they notice something different from the skinny poop, then please see your provider.
Got it. So it's about the change, whatever's normal for you.
It's about the change and it's persistent, right?
What worries you about the fact that despite the fact that this is so common, that education doesn't seem to get through? What worries you about that?
So many things because, as healthcare professionals, we just want every person to do their screening. And by the way, when we talk about cancer screening, people always miss what screening is. That's another thing that worries us. So when we talk about screening, we're saying it's a check for people without signs and symptoms, okay? So you shouldn't be having this abdominal, what's it called, discomfort before coming for screening. When we are talking about screening, we are saying for average risk people without signs and without symptoms. And also, we use screening to prevent some cancers by finding and treating early changes. And that's what this FIT kit is used for. Because what we are finding when we send you this FIT kit is hidden blood in the poop. So what we are saying, before you do your screening, you shouldn't have signs. There should not be symptoms. We're just trying to use this to find and treat abnormal changes that we are noticing. And also, screening is used to find cancer early where it is better to treat. So most people just wait till they find symptoms, but we're saying no, don't see the symptoms before you screen as long as you're eligible.
And it can be quite serious, of course, if you don't catch it because it'll progress quickly or could progress quickly. Thank you very much for being with us with the education today. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's live with us on Zoom. Wiosa Chikosa, who's a cancer care health educator. And obviously, we're talking about colon cancer screening and colorectal screening because it's important. But if you do get this FIT test in the mail, and now you know more about it. As I mentioned, those statistics, quite something. In 2022, they introduced these new tests. And in Manitoba, we have about 900 people, according to Cancer Care Manitoba, who are diagnosed with colon cancer every year, and more than 300 people die. Coming up after 8 o'clock on the show this morning, we are going to be hearing more about what is happening with a couple of different stories. One of them is we're going to find out what Winnipeg police have to say that parents should be discussing right now with their children after a recent series of threats against Winnipeg schools. There were a number of shooting threats at schools. There were 5 within the last month. That's February alone. So we're going to talk to the police all about this. Also, we're going to talk to yet another Winnipegger. This one is person is north of Puerto Vallarta, about 25K. They are in Bucerias. And we're going to talk more to them about what it is like for them there. I believe, because Corey's just changed the name on me, so we might talk to 2 people. We're also going to talk to someone who is stuck at the airport right now in Puerto Vallarta. So we're going to reach out to her. Speaking of this, though, it's a very fluid situation. We're calling as many Manitobans as we can who are there. So Heather Wells is here with her headlines. Good morning.
Yes, and Winnipegger Wendy Bulow is one of the many Manitobans stuck in Puerto Vallarta. She is at the airport. We just spoke with her, and she says there's no food or water for people who are holed up there. She says at one point shots rang out and everyone ran to a corridor. Her husband had already gone through security and was on the tarmac. He was told to run into a field. So we'll hear the latest from Puerto Vallarta's airport with Wendy Bulow coming up. Also, marking 4 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, hundreds gathered at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg yesterday. Dozens also marched in Brandon. We'll take you there in our next local news at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Well, World Report is next on CBC.
Shows, but this time she's taking on Hamlet, playing 23 characters herself on stage.
Though this be madness, yet there is method in it.
She's here to talk about what drew her to the play and how the show honors the women of Hamlet.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
We all feel guilt at some point in our lives for all sorts of reasons. Seems natural to feel guilty maybe for what you've done or not done or should be doing. The author Chris Moore thinks guilt has an image problem. He'll talk about the power of guilt coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Thousands of Canadians are stranded in Mexico following the death of a powerful drug lord.
All of a sudden, a car comes speeding up the street and turns, and behind him is a motorcycle with 2 men on it, and the back one has a gun, and he's shooting at the car.
Canadian tourist David McMillan describes a scene outside his Puerto Vallarta hotel. He says cartel members hijacked cars to set up burned roadblocks yesterday. The city erupted into violence after a drug lord known as El Mencho was killed by the military. President Claudia Sheinbaum says there are no roadblocks today, and she is working to achieve peace and security for everyone. Global Affairs is advising Canadians to exercise a high degree of caution if they're anywhere in Mexico. Journalist Katie Silver is in Mexico City. And Katie, what is the latest on the violence?
Well, we're hearing about continued violence, many hoping that day two might bring a sense of calm. But of course, we saw a lot of retribution from the cartel after this attack. So we're hearing, for example, local media reporting that up to 26 people may have died, including those that were killed in the operation from the cartel. We're also hearing as well school likely cancelled in several states today. And we're also hearing as well from the Canadian as well as the US government to warning their citizens to stay inside with shelter-in-place orders across a number of states across the country.
Much of this violence is happening in vacation spots that are popular with Canadians. What are you hearing from tourists who may be caught up in some of this?
There's a lot of fear, as you can imagine. So the Facebook groups where many tourists post to, that they are rife with people saying that they're stuck in Airbnbs, that they can't get food or water, or they're not sure how to do so. They're nervous to approach neighbours. So some are suggesting, for example, that they contact their Airbnb hosts in order to work out which neighbours might be safe to speak to. There are also holidaymakers who are unsure about whether or not to take their flights in the next couple of days, if they even can. Of course, Air Canada cancelling some flights. Of course, it's not just Puerto Vallarta, but also on the East Coast, Tulum and places near Cancun as well impacted as well.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, Marcia.
Freelance journalist Katie Silver in Mexico City. Volodymyr Zelensky says the U.S. must put more pressure on Russia to end its war on Ukraine. The Ukrainian president spoke with Radio-Canada's Le Téléjournal just ahead of tomorrow's 4-year anniversary of the conflict. Zelensky says a diplomatic path to peace is still possible.
Our way how to negotiate is to speak. That was the proposition from Americans. If they will pressure on Putin to stop this war, and that's it. We don't need, these pretty dialogues. Yes, we are enemies, but we understand that without negotiations, without dialogue, nobody can stop this war.
The Trump administration wants Ukraine to make territorial concessions to Russia. Zelensky says that amounts to the abandonment of his people. Humanitarian agencies working in Gaza are facing a new crisis. Half the pool of international aid workers will be expelled by the end of this week, including from groups like MSF or Doctors Without Borders. As Crystal Gomansing reports, Israel says they are refusing to provide the names of local staff.
MSF has been working here since 1988. These new restrictions are more than we've ever had to deal with.
Craig Kenzie, a Canadian project coordinator for MSF, sits in the agency's pediatric hospital in Deir al-Bala, but he's leaving in a few days, ahead of what he describes as an expulsion by Israel.
We already do vet our staff to make sure that they're not part of any armed group. This additional layer to submit all those names is beyond what is acceptable, especially with 1,700 medical staff that have been killed in this conflict so far.
Those numbers are from the Palestinian Health Authority run by Hamas. Local staff will be left to run the hospital, clinics, and MSF's water desalination plant. The rule changes will impact roughly half of all international humanitarian agencies working in Gaza. Those workers have been a lifeline for Palestinians and contributed to the global understanding of what's happening on the ground.
Being here as a Canadian, really realized just how privileged we are in Canada and just how completely different lives can be around the world. This communal punishment of the Gazan population is just something I don't think I'll ever be able to understand.
The new rules introduced late last year were said to enhance Israeli security. CBC requested comment from the agency overseeing the changes, COGAT, but has yet to hear back. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Millions of people across the U.S. are in the path of a powerful storm.
This will be something the likes of which we've not seen in years.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul warning people not to try to outsmart Mother Nature. A low-pressure system is fueling a winter bomb cyclone. It is affecting areas from Virginia to Maine. More than 250,000 customers have lost power. Tens of millions of people are under blizzard warnings, with some areas possibly getting more than 60 centimeters of snow. Parts of Atlantic Canada could also experience this nor'easter. Winter storm warnings are in effect across the region. U.S. President Donald Trump's push against wind power is cooling investments along the U.S. Atlantic coast. But one lawmaker says Trump's aversion to offshore wind projects could actually benefit Canada. International climate correspondent Susan Ormiston has been digging into the politics.
There are windmills all over the place, and they are losers.
President Trump is at war with wind power, slapping stop work orders on offshore wind projects along the U.S. Atlantic coast.
Money's already spent. The stuff's here. So why are you going to stop it now?
Ian Kapura worked at an offshore hub in Connecticut. The wind companies are fighting back in court, and they won injunctions this month to keep building. But Trump's purge has put a chill on future investments, says Chris Oleth, a wind power advocate.
The level of confidence in the market is less than zero.
I'm sad to say that I think Canada has a big opportunity because of the stain that the Trump administration has left. Our loss will be Canada's gain.
Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse says investors are now looking north.
Incredible wind speeds.
Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is pitching an offshore wind mega project.
The interest is through the roof. Honestly, this is either the best opportunity in the world or one of the best. There's a lot of eyes on Nova Scotia.
Projected costs $40 billion to build, another $20 billion for transmission lines. Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, a combination. The industry will pay, governments, tax credits. We're having encouraging discussions with the federal government.
Some of the power, he says, could be exported back to the U.S.
We need to know those customers will be there, and they will be there. So it's an opportunity.
The province is considering a call for bids later this year. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Rhode Island.
Prime Minister Mark Carney will be leaving on another trade trip later this week. He's traveling to India, Australia, and Japan starting on Thursday. The Prime Minister's office says Carney's goal will be to unlock new opportunities for Canadian workers and businesses across trade, energy, technology, and defense. Harm reduction for drug users can be a controversial topic in Canadian cities, but in rural communities, it's almost non-existent. A new program in Newfoundland and Labrador is working to fill that gap and save lives. And it's free for those in need. The CBC's Julia Israel has more.
Sarah Torville works in harm reduction, where she assembles safe-use supply boxes. Each box gets syringes, naloxone, and drug test strips. The goal is to make the use of street drugs a little less dangerous.
I just really care about making sure that they can be as safe as they can.
Sterile needles reduce the risk of people getting HIV and hepatitis C, and naloxone can save someone from overdose. The Safe Works Access program in Newfoundland and Labrador mails out supplies for free. The organization, known as SWAP, sends them to pharmacies and offices, but also directly to people's homes. Jillian Cola teaches at Memorial University, and she studies approaches to harm reduction across Canada. To her, this is innovative.
And that's actually a model here that I think the rest of the country can learn from, because in a lot of parts of the country, we're not doing a great job of actually addressing rural and remote communities and making sure that their needs are met.
In 2024, at least 71 people died from overdose in this province, while the country saw over 7,000. Cola says now is the time to scale up services before the crisis gets worse. Other parts of the country have focused on supervised drug consumption sites in bigger cities, but that doesn't help people living in the many small communities of the country. SWAP says mailing out supplies could lower the chance of overdose and lessen the weight on the healthcare system. Julia Israel, CBC News, St. John's.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. We got a busy morning on our hands here listening Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC. It is minus 20 in Winnipeg with wind chill today. It's going to be minus 11 for a high, but with wind chill it'll feel more like minus 32, so it's going to be very cold. Well, part of why it's very busy is we've all been on the phones with Manitobans who are stuck in Puerto Vallarta and the area as the cartel has taken over there. And there's obviously a lot of stories that we're hearing now about folks who are asked to shelter in place. Our news department is in a moment with the very latest. That is Heather Wells, who's going to be joining us as we hear one of those stories. In addition, this half hour on the show to another story that's been developing, we are going to have a conversation with the Winnipeg police this half hour on the program. And that is because we want to hear what their advice is to parents and students after a recent series of threats against Winnipeg schools. As you might know, there's been at least 5 in the last month, threats against of shooting that happened at Winnipeg schools. That was February alone. So we're going to talk to the police about their sensibility around this and what their advice is. Right now, though, let's go to Puerto Vallarta and the changing situation there. Heather Wells, what can you tell us?
Good morning. Yes. Well, we're hearing harrowing tales. One from a Winnipegger who was at Puerto Vallarta's airport when shots rang out. Wendy Bulow says everyone ran for cover. She ended up in a little room. Her husband, who had already gone through security and was on the tarmac, was told to run into a field. And this morning, Wendy tells us there's no food or water for people who are stuck there at Puerto Vallarta's airport. Now, one flight was canceled. At least 3 flights was diverted. One flight diverted. 3 flights from Winnipeg to Puerto Vallarta were canceled yesterday. We'll get the latest on that. And a measles outbreak in the Morden Winkler area isn't concerning for some people who live there. That's even though Health Canada says the Southern Health Region has the most confirmed cases in Canada this year. I'll be back with the latest Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather. In the weather forecast here, current conditions are this. Winnipeg mostly cloudy and nice, beautiful sky downtown, though. Minus 19 is the temperature right now, and winds are southwest at 4. Over in Brandon, mostly cloudy, minus 21, and then up in Thompson, it is lightly snowing and it's minus 26. We do have a yellow level warning of cold for Brochet, Tuduli, Gillam, Shamattawa, Churchill, and York. And up in Thompson today, you are expecting cold as well. You're going to be 30% chance of flurries, 2 to 4 centimeters of snow. Your high is minus 20. For Winnipeg, our high is minus 11, but with wind chill, it'll feel like minus 32. Now, we have had some calls this morning about Centerport Way. This is Greg and Ross calling earlier about Centerport Canada Way and the commute. Very backed up, north and southbound. At one point, we weren't sure why. So that may be clear and improved now or not. Call us either way on that traffic line. You can call us at 204-788-3093. Well, Heather mentioned the developing story out of Puerto Vallarta, and she mentioned Wendy, a Manitoban who's been stuck in the airport with quite a story. She is stuck with my next guest. I just spoke at 8 o'clock with Katharina Stroefenhofer, who is from Manitoba, and we reached her in Puerto Vallarta.
Good morning.
Where are you?
I'm standing in front of the airport. We spent all day yesterday at the airport, and then we spent the night. We're fortunate to scrounge some cardboard, which made the night a little bit more comfortable. But there's nothing open in the airport, no coffee, no food, no water. And we have booked a couple of hotel rooms, but no way of getting there. There's no taxis, no buses. I heard that 17 buses have been burned. And I just spoke to a gentleman who picked up his kids who also were supposed to fly back to Winnipeg yesterday, and he said that he's passed several burned out cars and also police, military checkpoints that asked him why he was coming into the airport area. There's nothing coming in or going out.
When you said, you scrounged cardboard, is that what you slept on?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have been stuck at the airport for how long? Had you just arrived in Puerto Vallarta?
Well, yesterday, no, we had vacations north of here, and we were supposed to fly out yesterday, so back to Winnipeg, and we arrived at the airport maybe around 9-ish, so we had to take a detour because the toll road we were taking yesterday morning already had closed, so we had to take a detour, and then we passed burned out cars and saw lots of smoke. So it all started happening around 8:15 yesterday morning. So just as we were coming into Puerto Vallarta, all of this started happening and spread. And then more fires, more black smoke, and
take me into the most nerve-wracking moments in the airport yesterday.
Well, everybody was nobody knew what was going on, and all of a sudden there was this big panic, and apparently shots were fired outside of the airport, and everybody just hit the floor and hit behind pilars and walls and behind the conveyor belt and the counters, and people were crying, and then there was just so much panic and so much uncertainty about what was going on, and it was just very. And then this lady came and she told us all to follow her, and she took us into this narrow hallway and told us to sit down. So we did that for a while, a whole bunch of the travelers with their suitcases sitting in this narrow hallway. And then, it just, my heart was pounding, and, it was very scary.
Wow.
But then, just more uncertainty, and it does not seem like we're going to get out of here maybe Wednesday at the earliest. But, somebody said maybe March 1st. So nobody knows what's happening. And I guess it all very much depends on the situation with the cartel and the military.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots of military presence, a lot of military guys with the big submachine guns walking around the airport and standing outside. And we're being told that actually the airport may be the safest place.
Okay.
But again, I don't really want to spend another night in the airport.
Yeah. So where are you getting the information that you may get out of there? You said Wednesday or March 1st, even though you don't know it. Is that coming from airlines, or where is that coming from?
No, WestJet has abandoned us, like just completely abandoned us. There were a couple of guys behind the counter yesterday, and for a while they said they'd try and get us hotels, and then eventually they said, you're on your own. If you can find a hotel, you're going to have to also find a way there, and we might reimburse you. And then they all left.
Sorry, there's no employees at all in any of the...
No, there's no one, no airline, employees at all at the airport. There's nothing.
So you have no idea if you're going to be getting on a flight.
No.
And that would be your wish to get on a flight, Katarina?
Yes.
Or because you also mentioned maybe trying to get in to go to a hotel. What?
Yeah, I think there's no flights going out, not today. And, but it also doesn't look like tomorrow.
Would you feel safe going into the Puerto Vallarta to a hotel? Like, what's your sense of your safety?
The sense of safety isn't great. Not at all. But then staying at the airport with no food, with no restaurants open, is not exactly a sustainable option either.
Are there any emergency officials then, if the flight attendants and if those folks aren't there anymore?
There's no one there.
Who's there to help you, all you travelers who are stuck in the airport?
You know what? I have to give really big kudos. I booked through CAA on Empress.
Yeah.
And I have to give huge kudos. I, sent a couple of notes, a couple of emails, and, and then last night, Sunday night, Lisa, the head manager of the Empress CAA, she emailed me and asked me how I was, and emailed me twice to check on me and said that she would try and talk to WestJet today.
So you have someone locally here at CAA that's doing more for you than your airline is. Just as a last question, what does it smell like or look like this morning? You said you're out.
Oh, yeah. No, the smell, like there's still smoke in the air, and there's this acrid this acrid, like toxic smell in the air. Because, like they burned a lot of buildings, a lot of cars, buses, Oxos. For some reason, they're the convenience store here. They seem to have burned a lot of Oxos. But that acrid smell, it's still in the air and the smoke is still hanging around.
Well, Katarina, I know that you wrote on my Facebook thread when I was asking how Manitobans are affected by things. We certainly will check in with you later today and hope you get some answers. But in the meantime, stay safe in that airport in Puerto Vallarta. And we're so grateful for your time here at home.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much. We're all looking forward to getting back to Canada, getting back to Winnipeg.
Yeah, it's hard.
I love it here, and the people are wonderful. And this is very unfortunate, very sad, and it's not. I don't think it's reflective of the area, and it's not reflective of Mexico.
So that's my conversation with Katarina Steinhofer, who's a Manitoban stuck at the airport in Puerto Vallarta. I spoke with her at 8 o'clock. Now, she's traveling with a group of 6 friends. We're going to hear from one of those friends in the 8:30 news about her perspective and experience being stuck there in Puerto Vallarta. Also, a couple of developments here as we've had that interview running. So one of them is Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum now says she expects flights to and from Puerto Vallarta will resume today or tomorrow. But that's as much as we have, and that just moved on national news wires. In addition, Corey has just sent an email out to WestJet for some comment based on what Katarina said about the airport and feeling abandoned by WestJet, as she put it. It is 8:22 a.m. You can read more about the situation, shelter in place in Puerto Vallarta on our website, cbc.ca or cbc.ca/Manitoba. Cloudy, -20 in Winnipeg. And next on the show, to the story I mentioned about schools. So we've been hearing a number of shooting threats at Winnipeg schools, 5 in the last month, February alone. Now, many of the threats are posted online or social media, but a recent threat against Garden City Collegiate was also in the school, written in graffiti in a school bathroom. Now, after the recent mass shooting at the high school in Tumbler Ridge, BC, a lot of parents and students and staff are likely feeling on edge. Winnipeg police have been investigating these school shooting threats here, and they can't share details of their investigations, but we wanted to hear what message that they have for students and parents. And so this morning with us live, Staff Sergeant Sean Venn with the Winnipeg Police Services Community Relations Division. Good morning.
Hi, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So anytime a threat like this happens and people, hear this, they get really nervous, obviously. What do you want young people to understand about how you guys, Winnipeg Police, treat these kinds of threats?
Well, I just want to start off, Marcy, by thanking you and your team for covering this deeply concerning trend. This is something that just doesn't. This is something that impacts our entire community and the entire school network. So, thank you very much for shining a spotlight on this. So, to get back to your question, this is something that it completely disrupts, like I said, not just police operations, but not just the impacted schools as well as the whole entire educational system, right? These those who think that this is a joke or this is a way to get out of school, it's not a joke. They have real criminal consequences. It's a very serious criminal offense for engaging in this type of behavior.
How common is it for a threat to be posted online by a student who doesn't actually intend to do anything violent, or maybe, to your example, thinks this is somehow a joke?
I don't know. I don't know how common it is. I know we receive these reports in a number of different ways, right? We certainly sometimes notes or voicemails or are discovered. Sometimes we get called directly to 911 by staff, students, or parents. So there's a number of different ways that these reports are made to police, but we don't have every single one of these reports and these investigations consumes an enormous amount of police resources. I can't say that more emphatically. They either on the front end, so during the initial emergency response, or on the back end when the investigation's turned over to detectives, right? Now, depending on the nature and the scope of the information that receive, a police response can really mean deploying massive amounts of resources, right? From tactical support team to canine units, patrol units, helicopter dogs. So they really do consume resources, and we take these very, very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Well, what kind of charges or fines could a student face if they're caught making a threat like this that you mentioned? What's the consequence?
Well, I think that's a case by case situation, right? So each case and file is, and the charges, the applicable charges, if there are criminal charges, it's determined by the evidence that we have. So we can certainly, in the past, we've made arrests, a number of arrests on these already, but you're looking at uttering threats to kill or cause harm. Again, depending on the nature and the scope of the information and the evidence that we receive or that we're able to collect, there could be additional charges as well, public mischief and others.
What's your thought or your reaction when you hear about threats like this being made, in the context of the kind of fear that it can cause for people?
Well, Marcy, that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it here. These types of pranks, as I had said earlier, they're very, very dangerous. Schools shouldn't, and I know the term safe space kind of gets thrown around a lot. It's a little bit cliche, but schools are safe places, and students shouldn't have to worry when they go to school about their safety, right? So students need to worry about when they're at school. They need to be focused on studying and learning. And same with parents, right? Parents should be assured that when they send their children to school and they go off to work, that their children are safe. And conversely with teachers, we've seen schools forced into lockdown. We've seen schools forced to activate other safety protocols. Teachers and administrators having to worry about managing these high stress situations. So they shouldn't have to do that. They should be focused on teaching.
And what should parents, in your view, be talking about to their kids to make sure that maybe more of these threats don't pop up, or what do you hope parents talk to their kids about?
Well, I think that parents, I think they need to. I would ask them to sit down with your children tonight. I would hope that they do explain the gravity of these situations. It's not a joke. It's not funny. These things are dangerous. They have very serious criminal consequences. The students, I would say to the students, our message to the students would be that silence is a choice. Step up and be a leader who stops this. Don't allow your friends or your peers, people you care about, other students, to be victimized. If you hear something, whether that's in school, during school hours, or out of school, if you see something in a group chat or on social media, report it to an adult or a trusted adult or police. That can be a school resource officer, that can be a teacher, police directly. Don't share it. Don't continue and escalate the fear.
Thank you very much for your time, Staff Sergeant. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, Marcy.
That is Staff Sergeant Sean Venn with the Winnipeg Police Services Community Relations Division. We're coming up to 8:30 here. I just always like to mention what's coming up on Radio Noon today. The call-in portion of the show where we ask you to, call in between 12:30 and 1 is around this question. Should Manitoba mandate measles vaccines for students? So should that be done in schools? Should Manitoba mandate measles vaccines for students? That's the question. Going to be quite a topic and a talker, I suspect, as we watch the measles numbers in Manitoba climb. But that's between 12:30 and 1 on Radio Noon. Marjorie Delhouse is back, so she'll be hosting. A couple thank yous from this morning's program just before our 8:30 news here. Our producers, Leif Larson and Nellie Gonzalez, as well as our Studio 15 live crew, Josh Tyfair, Darren Marash, and Corey Funk, who's been amazing this morning. In addition, thanks to our associate producers, Sophia Peralta-Barone, Chelsea Kemp, and Marshall Hodgins for their work on the program today. And in our news center, that's also been very busy today and just great, really good reporting, Megan Ketchison, Joni Nicolo, and Heather Wells, who we're going to hear from in a moment. So big thanks to everybody who put together this Monday morning edition of Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, and your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's minus 19. We're warming up 1 degree at least. We will keep warming up to minus 11 this afternoon, but for this morning, that strong south wind is giving us a risk of frostbite. One of the most popular tourist destinations for Canadians turned into a war zone over the weekend. Gunfire, flames, and sirens shattering the calm in Puerto Vallarta, part of Mexico that is usually considered very safe. Government forces killed a drug cartel leader known as El Mencho, and that sparked a violent response from his surviving gang members. Now, Winnipegger Wendy Bulow is among dozens of Manitobans stuck at the Puerto Vallarta airport since the violence erupted. We just spoke with her, and she says there is no food or water for people who are holed up there. Bulow was supposed to fly back home yesterday, but her WestJet flight was abruptly canceled. She says at one point, shots rang out in the Puerto Vallarta airport and everyone ran into a corridor. Her husband was already on the tarmac and was told to run into a field. Eventually, everyone was back in the terminal, but Bulow says there are no WestJet staff at the airport.
I would hope that the airlines or the airport kind of step up and maybe talk to people and help them a little bit. Because I don't know how these families in here are going to feed their kids and do all that, because everybody expected to get on a plane and, 5.5 hours later we're in Winnipeg, but now we're here for a long haul.
Bulow says they were told they would receive hotel vouchers, but she says there's no way to get to a hotel because all the roads are closed. Now, one flight from Winnipeg to Puerto Vallarta was diverted back yesterday because of that violence. The WestJet flight left Winnipeg at 6 Sunday morning, but it was diverted just about half an hour from Puerto Vallarta. It landed instead in Cabo and then flew back to Winnipeg. Lorna Friesen was among the dozens of passengers.
I was really surprised. I've been to PV 7 times before, and I've never seen any activity of cartel or anything. So it was a little bit of a surprise.
Friesen says if things in Mexico settle down, she might still try to go, but otherwise she says she's going to wait until next year. A spokesperson for the Winnipeg Airports Authority says as of 5:20 last night, 3 flights to Puerto Vallarta from Winnipeg had been canceled. Well, Winkler's Deputy Mayor Andrew Fraze says a measles outbreak is not a topic of conversation for people who live there. That's even though Manitoba's Chief Public Health Officer warns municipalities near Winkler and Morden have persistent high levels of transmission. Fraze says the city of Winkler is leaving messaging to provincial health officials. He says the measles vaccine is a choice, but hopes people in the region follow the experts' advice.
There may be some with pushback, but that's everywhere in anything. Ask someone to wear their seatbelt and they might not want to.
Provincial stats show Southern Health's measles vaccination rate among 7-year-olds is the lowest in the province at 53%. Well, marking 4 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Hundreds gathered at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights in Winnipeg yesterday. People who fled Ukraine say their country and the people left behind are always on their minds. Bohdana Jordan felt being at yesterday's rally was very important.
We want to show that we are united. Yes, we left our country, but our country didn't leave our hearts.
Jordan worries people are normalizing what's happening in Ukraine because Russia's attacks against her country are so frequent. Now, dozens also marched in Brandon, chanting the battle cry of Ukraine, marching from Brandon University to City Hall. Oleksandr Ryaby moved from Ukraine 3 years ago. While he and his family are building a new life in Canada, he says their hearts are also in Ukraine. Ryaby says it's frustrating diplomatic efforts so far have failed to end the war.
I can't say nothing good because, all people just struggle in Ukraine, here in Canada as well, because we all our souls over there in Ukraine, and it's horrible.
And Tuesday does mark 4 years since the Russian invasion began. Well, the Carney government says improving the health of men and boys could save Canada more than $12 billion a year. So today, the Government of Canada is launching a national conversation about their physical and mental health. Starting next week, everyone is invited to share their input online. Those comments will be used to develop Canada's first men and boys health strategy. It is due to be released later this year. You can find more news updated throughout the day and the latest on what is happening in Mexico and for the Winnipeggers and Manitobans who are stranded there. All you have to do is stay in step with us by going to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, great teamwork today. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
Our news department, Heather Wells, of course, through the day on the half hour and on the hour, the latest and online anytime. So Corey Funk is here with the last of what we have to tell you about traffic and weather.
Yes, I'll start with traffic. Centerport Canada Way, both ways. Heard maybe about an hour ago that it was super duper backed up. We never really totally found out why, so that may still be an issue for folks. Also, that was the only really major issue we heard. As for the weather, minus 19 right now in Winnipeg, heading for a high today of minus 11. Yellow cold warning up north, minus 37 in Churchill right now. Feels like minus 48 though with the wind chill. So that's where that yellow cold warning is. Also includes Chamattawa, Gillam, Tadouli Lake, Brochet, and York area as well. So keep warm up there, and looks like we're in for a bit of snow overnight here in Winnipeg as well, about 5 centimeters.
Next week's March already.
Right?
What?
And as soon as March 1st, it's like, it feels like it should be spring.
I know.
But it never really is until like April. Let's be serious.
March is the fooler month, as we
really
call
is.
it, right? You never
Yeah.
know what we're going to get, so we'll see. All right, thank you, Corey, for your work today.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening, and obviously continue listening to CBC Radio here as everything develops through the day out of Puerto Vallarta, but also other stories, of course. Lots going on. The Current's coming up next here, though, live on 89.3. I'm Marcy Marcusa. See you tomorrow.